to change onto something else, but I think we generally agree that there needs to be a change of tactics and how it is communicated, because evidently something is not working, especially like you just said, Senator Omar Hassan. When you look at the older generation and the younger generation, there needs to be, I mean, if we look at even our schools right now, one of the key things that's making them be raised to the ground is just a communication channel. Maybe the way the principals communicate with the children is completely different from what they term as communication. So maybe we'll leave it at that, but let's look at something else. Another area is the police image, which is currently not very good. We also have the CS in Kaiseri, as late as yesterday, saying he will not resign. And let me start with you, Senator, because I know you're very involved in human rights, and the fact that right now the image of the police is literally very dicey, given the extrajudicial killings that have been going on, and we don't seem to be getting direction from top leadership in what the problem is and how they're going to deal with it.
I specifically handled the police for 5 years when I was at the Council. That was my forte. I removed the program from what I called police reforms to security sector reforms. We looked at it holistically. And for the first time, I engaged with government functionaries in a manner that I had not hoped, but I thought it was strategic for us at that time to score certain political points in terms of moving policy and legislative framework forward. So the entire spirit of democratic policing, because we had a paradigm shift from regime policing to democratic policing. Those are paradigm shifts. From the securitization of our democracy to the democratization of our security. You know, those are the paradigm shifts that we're talking about. And we got a very late converge to it, the late Saitoti. That's why the 3 police acts were probably the most progressive police acts arising from the Constitution. So the chapter on National Police Service was very elaborate. And then the National Police Service Act, the National Police Service Commission Act, and the Independent Police Oversight Act, which are part of the fulfillment of the Constitution, were extremely progressive. They envisaged police security sector reforms. They envisaged a strategic manager at the helm of the policing. That's why we said even a civilian could be a an IG. So that he was a strategic manager, you know, running programs of reforms, not putting on a combatant, wielding a little stick whenever there is something happening, you know, so that we can have, you know, a trickle-down effect. You know, when you need to change, also the leadership needs to show that it has actually transformed. You just don't put on a cap with a new, you know, insignia. It has to be complete. You don't put on a new uniform. That's not changing. So you change
so maybe
the institutional culture.
To get to the bottom of it, what is bedeviling our police service force?
The security sector reforms or police reforms aborted. So there's no accountability. The human rights trainings that were supposed to be there have not been infused. The regime character of the policing, where the president insists on appointing the IG, still rather than a democratic policing system, is not in place. So the lack of accountability. What we said, we needed to demilitarize our police. We have not demilitarized it, so we still come from an arena of a regime police that was a replica of the colonial regime police. We have still not de-ethnicized our police. You remove the former IG, you put an IG from his very village. That's why I was telling somebody ODM might have to look for somebody from their own village, because that's the culture in Kenya. You remove a Babu, you look for somebody from his village.
Although that would literally be pushing the same narrative.
So yeah, that's unfortunately how it is. So your point, how do you look for a replacement for a police commissioner or an IG from the same village that the previous one came from, because you want to deal with a political question?
Okay.
I'm not saying he's done badly, but definitely. And then lastly, nobody takes responsibility in this country. It is that guy. It is not me. So when you're under pressure, you bundle of 4 or 5 policemen and put them in custody and ask that they be denied bail as you conclude your investigations. The same script, same script. No, you're not like David Cameron, who I took the country to a referendum, I lost, I leave. And many other, you know, people who have taken responsibility for certain things.
All right, William Okech.
Yes, IG Barnett looks like a man with good intentions. I was just reading his interview in one of the local dailies.
He looks like.
Well, I think the Kenyan police, all the 3 units, that is the police and the administration and the DCI, I think they've actually been socialized differently, and that was even an admission from the IG. There had been problems in terms of how do they relate together, how do they work as a core unit. There are cases where even some APs had even stormed a police station and released one of their own who was arrested for some crime. So it appears that some progress have been made. There have been laws, have been passed, the 3 laws, but still in terms of fine-tuning policy issues and institutional frameworks, that remains to be seen, because there are a lot of complaints. The other time we were reading that out of about 150,000 complaints at the Ombudsman, about 15,000 relate with police issues. So I think in terms of training, it needs to be overhauled so that their training goes in line with international best practices. It needs to be demilitarized, because there was an incident where the AP has progressively, it has been armed lethally even more than the regular police service, because in terms of deployment, the AP has always been used in election issues. So I think that is a core-critical issue. And in terms of appointment, the original acts which were passed were very clear that there has to be a competitive process, a process which is shielded from executive influence, but Parliament backtracked on that. It was amended, and now I think the President appoints directly. So there are issues which needs to be fine-tuned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ambrose Sweda, let's talk about responsibility, because like Senator says, we are in a society that literally does not account for anything. It's always the other guy. Yes. And we already have Nkaiseri. At the point where we had the Occupy IEBC protest taking place, he was very vocal. And he said we have enough tear gas, we have enough everything to deal with anything that may a breach of peace. But then that tone changes when his own officers are now implicated. Who is responsible, and how do we get them to be responsible?
I think these people are giving the president a very bad name. Nkaiseri is responsible. Inspector General.
Are they really giving the president a bad name? Why doesn't the president do something about it? He also has a responsibility. It's his appointment.
Let's take it this way. You are given a job to do. Something has gone wrong in your docket. And because we live in a culture where responsibility is spread all over, they do not take responsibility. The vigor with which Nkaiseri spoke about the tear gas is not the same vigor with which he spoke about the killings and the harassment by police officers.
Correct.
Why did he not do that? Because people had said the problem, the fish rots at the top, it is with you, please leave. This is the kind of scenario. What we have with the police is a failed system. A failed system where the recruits are actually our relatives and friends, but they are our relatives who are not the best. You know, with the power, you don't choose your best child to go to the police. You choose the worst one. You say, this one, now where do we take this one? Say, push him to the police. That's why we have the rogue ones. So it's a failed system that requires Nkaiseri
right from recruitment?
Yes, to take responsibility and give Kenyans what we call a gift. I'm saying Nkaiseri, the Inspector General, and Arachi, the head of the AP. They should give Kenyans a gift by getting angry. They should be annoyed. And being annoyed, I am saying they quit. So we are so annoyed that we give this another person to do it. Then after they have left, we should merge the AP with the regular police. I don't see the difference in training, the difference in orientation, where some are so brutal. The APs are taken to be so brutal. They are more brutal than the GSU. I don't know what they eat when they go to Embakasi for training. And those things we need to dismantle them so that we have a service and not
a force.
Not a force.
But the merging of the police services, the two services, was a very big discussion pre-referendum.